Hello, wonderful people. Today we're talking a little bit more about acceptance. Acceptance is the second of four tools that we talked about in the workshop about thriving in isolation. The first one was noticing what's going on within us. The second one, today's topic, is accepting what we find in there. The third step is going to be investigating where it comes from and why it's there. And then our fourth step is going to be learning to release it so that we can be more fully present, more fully activated, and thriving in our quiet times, our isolated times. Eventually, that bleeds over into our noisier times so that we're thriving there too. So, what is acceptance? Acceptance, at its very base level, is learning to be okay with what we find when we notice. And that can be really challenging because a lot of what we notice, we then immediately judge. And that's what we've done for a really long time, most of our lives, is we've judged what we find within ourselves. And for a lot of us, that's probably why quiet time, solitude, isolation is so challenging. Because when we're quiet and we just notice what's going on within us, kind of there's that voice that tells us that we're broken, that we're not good enough, or that we should be doing something else. We should be worrying about what other people think, blah, 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 blah. So acceptance allows us to step out of conflict with ourselves. And that's a really powerful step. And it's really important to take that step before we go into investigating, because otherwise investigating can turn into just beating ourselves up even more. So acceptance kind of opens the door for us to really start to explore what's happening within us in a way that develops and grows us as humans. So how do we accept ourselves and what we notice within ourselves? It's really challenging. And it's challenging because, kind of like noticing, there's no one way to do it, and it'll be a little different for everybody, and that's okay. But when we think about, what do I tell people to do when I'm inviting them to accept what's going on within them? The biggest tool that tends to be effective, at least to teach people on a quick basis, goes back to something we mentioned really briefly in the workshop and in the last video, and that is the differentiation of subject and object. So when we notice something, what we're really noticing is that there's something happening within us. And the us is a little separate from what's happening. And because we notice it, it is not us. And there's a couple of links in the newsletter this month about that if you want to do a little deeper dive. But really, I think the value of this is to start to separate ourselves from the emotions and the thoughts and the behaviors in a way that doesn't create conflict. And so what does this look like? We're already used to writing stuff down because we're trying to write down what we notice. And this is going to be a continuation of that. And it starts with being fully identified with the problem, which is where most of us live. We don't think about all the stuff that's going on. We just say, I'm angry. I am angry. And when we start to separate the subject from the object, we recognize that it's not I that is angry. Maybe it's I that feels anger in there. Maybe it's I that sees anger in there. And that's a really seemingly little distinction, but that change in verbiage can really change the way that we interact with ourselves. And we can continue to extrapolate that out. So, my name is Tom. So instead of I am angry, Tom is angry. Tom feels angry. Tom seems angry. When we say it that way, it seems like such a small difference, but it changes the entire experience internally. And once I can create that level of separation, then I use the big guns of acceptance. And I say, it's okay that Tom is angry. And if that creates a whole bunch more emotions and a whole nother story about, how it's not okay that Tom is, angry or sad or whatever the things that I'm noticing, then I notice that and I accept that as well. And so it might start with, I'm angry, and move towards, I notice Tom being angry. And then when I notice Tom being angry, I feel really guilty about being angry, or I feel ashamed of my anger. Oh, okay. It's Tom is feeling shame about his anger. It's okay that Tom's feeling shame about his anger. It's okay that you're feeling whatever you're feeling, that you're thinking whatever you're thinking. And acceptance doesn't mean we're not going to deal with it. It's a really important distinction. We're not just saying this is the way the world is and it's the way it's always going to be. That's not what we're doing through acceptance. What we're doing is we're creating enough separations so that we're not fighting ourselves as we deal with it. And that way, when we decide on how to deal with it, we're actually way more likely to follow through, to create action and create change for ourselves. And that builds this sense of confidence that allows us to thrive. So accepting, by using this little tool today, what I would invite you to do, write down everything you notice, right? Use the practice we've already used. Spend a couple minutes a day, 2-3 minutes. That's all it takes to notice what's going on and write it down. And then reframe it through the lens of acceptance. If you notice that you're bouncing all over the place and you're just really wanting to be distracted, great. I notice a desire inside of me to be distracted. And then how do you feel about that desire? Okay, and then accept that. It's okay that I feel a desire. It's okay that there's this desire within me to be distracted. That's okay, I accept that. And now I don't have to hold on to it. When I don't have to hold on to it, I've got a lot more power and I've got a lot more latitude for enjoying my experience day to day so that I'm not constantly beating myself up with the baggage that I bring along with myself. So that's the homework for today. I'm going to be coming back to you again in a couple days with another video about investigating. But before we get there, we have to practice noticing and accepting together, because if we don't do those first, investigating is not going to be what we want it to be. So best of luck. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns, and I look forward to seeing you in just a couple days.